We are in the future.
I've been wanting to do a Steven Universe video for a long time, and the conclusion of Steven Universe Future gives me the perfect excuse. I'm not exaggerating when I say that Steven Universe has been my favorite cartoon of the last decade, with only the DuckTales reboot even coming close. And even expanding the list to a top 20 versus a top 10, I had to make some painful cuts. Summing up a show like Steven Universe is trickier than it might seem, since it's so lore-heavy and introduces elements in such a piecemeal fashion. But here goes nothing. Steven is the youngest member of the Crystal Gems, survivors of an interstellar rebellion who fought to protect the Earth from the Diamond Authority, the oppressive leaders of the Gem homeworld. Steven himself is the son of Rose Quartz, former leader of the rebellion, and Greg Universe, a failed rock star now running a car wash and who miraculously has not died of skin cancer. As the inheritor of Rose's gem, Steven learns to master the powers bestowed upon him while also struggling to live up to the legacy his mother left behind. The other members of the Crystal Gems are... Garnet serves as the unofficial leader and is eventually revealed to be a fusion between two different gems, the hot-headed Ruby and the cool, mysterious Sapphire. Amethyst is a scrappy court soldier who didn't come out the way she was supposed to, giving her a lot of insecurities and identity issues to grapple with. Pearl is the most motherly towards Steven, but having spent most of her life dedicated to Rose, is unsure how to move on with her life now the person she'd pledged herself to is no longer around. Eventually, amongst their ranks, the gems recruit the boisterous weaponsmith Bismuth, the snide tech genius Peridot, and the emotionally damaged water goddess Lapis Lazuli. Steven's best friend Connie also gets in on the action, learning how to sword fight and eventually keeping up with gems twice her size.
Ready? Drop the bubble.
An important aspect of the show is the concept of fusion, which allows gems to join together and form a new, more powerful one. As we said earlier, Garnet is a fusion, but is able to fuse with Pearl to make the showy Sardonyx, or with Amethyst to form the absolutely brutal Sugalite. Pearl and Amethyst, for their part, can form Opal, who possesses the miraculous power to be on the show for 5 seasons and still only have 3 lines. Even Steven gets in on it eventually, forming the jovial Smoky Quartz with Amethyst and Stevani with Connie, the first gem human hybrid.
This is unprecedented. A gem fusing with a human being? It's impossible! Or at the very least, inappropriate.
Together, they protect Steven's home of Beach City and try to quarantine corrupted gems left over from Rose's rebellion, while gradually realizing their war with the diamonds in Homeworld isn't over just yet.
Everybody got that?
Couple of ground rules when ranking episodes. First off, there will be heavy spoilers. I'll try my best to fill in gaps and provide context for each episode since I'll be jumping around seasons, but regardless, there will be spoilers. Choices will be based on the problem and/or conflict of the episode, how they overcome it, how the episode expands on the lore or mythology, the lesson they teach, since this is a family show, and most importantly, how well made and fun the episode is. A special bonus point will be awarded for a memorable song, since music plays such an important role in the show. Fair warning, I'm not including any episodes from the Change Your Mind finale, since it depends so heavily on payoffs to events that happens in the episodes I have on this list. So consider that an honorable mention. I also won't be including any Steven Universe Future episodes, since that series hasn't concluded yet. Maybe I'll do a separate video after the series has concluded proper, I don't know, we'll see.
It's the rules.
Oh, please.
Also, I've given this a lot of thought. I am not putting a single pale rose on the list. Those who have seen it know why. Those who haven't seen it, just trust me on this. So consider that an honorable mention as well. With that out of the way, let's get started. Here are the top 20 episodes of Steven Universe.
Number 20, Sadie Killer. It's difficult to think of a Steven Universe character who's gotten the short end of the stick more often than Sadie. But after Lars gets turned into a pink undead space pirate, long story, she's forced to not only deal with his absence, but also working double shifts at the Big Donut because, well, they can't be bothered to hire a replacement. While this is going on, Steven is busy forming a band with the cool kids, and when they're getting ready for their first big show, they realize that Sadie might be the key to bringing their sound together. Season 5 was all about blowing up the status quo and engendering change in these characters we've known for so long, and Sadie's arc was easily the most satisfying. Until this point, Sadie's been defined by her complicated relationship with Lars and her boring day job at the Big Donut. Removing one of these made her realize how unsatisfying the other one was, even if she tries to justify it like so many of us do when we're trapped in such menial jobs.
I'm the only employee at this shop. I can't just leave. But a lot of things could be a lot of things. This job is a drag, but at least I know it's a drag. It's normal. You ever feel so bad that you feel good? Like when you get so cold that it burns.
Fortunately, though, this gives her the motivation to come out of her shell and realize her full potential playing with the cool kids. Not only is her song Working Dead one of the best songs in the show's history, it's also one of the best animated with appropriately creepy visuals.
Oh, we are the working dead, and we lurch for minimum wage. But I'd really rather be eating your brain.
In seriousness, as someone who spent an embarrassing amount of time as a retail slave himself, it's very cathartic to see her throw off the work shirt and pursue the band full time. The victory here is very personal, hence why I didn't put this episode higher on the list. But considering it's a character that's been around literally since day one, it's more than well deserved.
But Sadie, don't you have work?
I quit!
Number 19, back to the kindergarten. Terrified of entering another war with the Gem homeworld, Lapis flies off with the barn she was staying in and leaves Peridot in the lurch.
Maybe you should get some fresh air.
What's the point?
Trying to give her something to do, Steven and Amethyst try to see if they can restore life to the abandoned kindergarten, only to realize it's not as simple as it seems.
You can make us feel dumb by telling us all this stuff we don't know. I missed that.
It's already a shock to see someone as energetic as Peridot being this down in the dumps, but this episode also illustrates how much she's changed as a person. Being a kindergartner used to be her life's ambition, what she was literally made for. And after her experiences with the crystal gems and losing Lapis, she's viewing it through an entirely different light.
This used to make sense to me. I thought life was generated in a kindergarten. Formless, aimless energy channeled into new, useful gems. I've gotten used to plants everywhere. Bugs and breeze and sunshine. All of that has been sucked out of this place.
What Peridot's going through is basically an analog for a breakup, and since I had just gone through a breakup when I first watched this episode, I'd be lying if I said some of the moments didn't hit uncomfortably close to home, especially Peridot's breakdown at the end.
Well, I don't know why I'm surprised. I should have known not to have hope. I feel just great now that I know that nothing's ever going to get better. Everything is just ruined forever. We can't get any of it back. Not my home, not Lapis, and not this crummy planet either. We might as well just throw it all in the garbage and toss ourselves in after because it's all just hopeless trash.
But what I like about this episode is it shows the different phases of a breakup as something natural, even if they're unpleasant. The crippling depression, the negativity, and finally the anger. The show doesn't pull its punches on these moments, but it also reminds us that life goes on, and even if things seem bad now, the chance for achieving happiness again is just over the horizon. And if you're lucky, you'll have friends and loved ones to help you get through it. Just keep the country music to a minimum. Number 18, Same Old World.
I thought you left.
I was leaving, but then I realized I've got nowhere to go.
When Lapis feels uncertain and directionless after finally being freed from her fusion with Jasper, she and Steven essentially decide to go on a road trip to see if they can find a suitable place for her to live on Earth. While they do, Lapis learns to open up and tries to make peace with the trauma of her past while also trying to look to the future for the first time. Lapis was always a hard character for me to get a grasp on, not helped by the fact that she didn't seem interested in befriending anyone except for Steven, as far as the gems were concerned anyway. In this episode, all of her interactions are with Steven, so we get to see her positive side and get to see her open up more.
So what does happen in Empire City?
If you lived here, you could get a cool apartment and be a single gem taking on the big city. You'd have a fun job at a local coffee shop and come home to a wacky roommate.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
We also get to see her take in the wonder and possibility of Earth as they visit different locales, all of which are gorgeously rendered. Except for Jersey.
You'd like it in Jersey. The people here seem to hate the Earth too.
What happened to Lapis was heartbreaking, and while this episode doesn't deny her trauma and hurt, more importantly, it gives her the possibility of taking her life in a direction she didn't think possible before. It reminds us that nothing is stagnant, and it's never too late to start over. As Steven says, even Jersey changes.
It's funny. For all the time I spent on Earth, I barely saw any of it.
That's not funny. That's super sad.
Number 17, Hit the Diamond.
Ruby?
quartet of rubies come across the barn trying to find crew members of the failed Earth mission, which just so happened to include Peridot. However, since the rubies aren't exactly rocket surgeons, Steven comes up with a plan on the spot to distract them with a game of baseball.
Baseball.
Baseball?
I saw that this was a possibility, though I am surprised that this is the path we're taking.
If the rubies win, the crystal gems will give up Peridot, and if the gems win, the rubies have to leave Earth forever.
This plan sucks.
A sign of a well-written character when it comes to comedy is that you stick them in a situation and you know exactly what they'll do. For example, you stick Daffy Duck in any scenario, we know exactly how he'll react because we know Daffy Duck so well. This episode shows how strong the Steven Universe cast really is, because everyone not only gets a hilarious moment, but it's hilarious in a way fitting to their character.
Haven't I caused you enough trouble?
Don't worry, Peridot. It's our sworn duty to protect anything that calls this planet home. And that includes clods like you.
That's my word.
We also get an X Factor thrown into the fray with the Ruby Squad, who easily steal the show. Charlene Yee manages to instill every one of them with an insanely memorable and unique personality, and... I'm sorry, they're just so dumb!
What a lovely planet. Wait, so we just get out and walk around?
Also, I feel like there was a subtle bit of revenge going on in this episode on the part of the Crooniverse. You see, a lot of foreign dubs of the show like to either downplay or outright remove the romantic relationship between Ruby and Sapphire. So what's the show's response? Have the two of them unambiguously flirt for an entire episode.
Hey, how's it going? Are we winning?
Now what you want to do is lead with your hips. Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, let me show you again.
Well,
Lapis even points it out, so there's no room for debate. You can almost feel the word flirting underlined in the script when she reads it.
What's going on? What are they doing?
Flirting.
So yeah, I'm angry that I can't put this any higher on the list, but it still comes highly recommended. They're just so dumb.
Not all of them.
Number 16, Escapism. Steven and Connie find themselves imprisoned after fusing in front of the Diamond Authority and offending the sensibilities of the Gem Court. Desperate to escape before they run out of food, Steven decides to see if he can astral project back to Earth, by the way he can do that, and call for backup, but he doesn't end up where he would like. That's right, Steven finds he's possessed one of the watermelon Stevens that he birthed from the episode of the same name. This show gets weird. As he tries to build a means to get back to Beach City, he finds that the watermelons are embroiled in a civil war of their own, and has to help them out if he wants to get anywhere in his quest. I put this episode on the list because it's a masterwork of show don't tell, since after Steven possesses the body of the watermelon, there's no dialogue to speak of, aside from In spite of that, we instantly get what's going on with the watermelon civil war, and what makes this episode so great is how it reinforces the themes of the Change Your Mind arc. Namely, that prejudice is stupid and we should be working together rather than against one another. It's funny. There was a time less than a decade ago I'd have called narratives about prejudice to be hacky and pretentious. Now I support them in any form, because clearly there are some people in our society who just aren't getting it. Number 15, Jungle Moon.
Lars! We're hit! Nothing's working!
Hold on. What is your course? Try and intercept.
After a mission with Lars and the Off-Colors goes haywire, Stevani finds themselves trapped on a jungle moon that used to be an outpost for Homeworld. As Stevani struggles to survive until rescue comes, they also start to investigate the ruined base and discover more insight into the mystery of Pink Diamond. This episode is unique in that it's the first one to not include an on-screen appearance by Steven at any point during its runtime. For once, Stevani is the star, front and center. Still, because of the nature of their fusion, you can still guess whether it's Steven or Connie speaking in any given scene, which AJ Michalka deserves high praise for.
Come on, we have to. We're out of energy bars. But it's so cute. But we need the protein for a healthy diet.
It's also genuinely impressive seeing Stevani survive for so long and adapt in this new environment. This is the first setting we've seen in the show that is truly and completely alien. And the staff put a lot of time not just in the backgrounds, but also the alien creatures themselves. Also, the animation during the finale is delightfully surreal. If there was only slightly more advancement of the lore, it'd probably be higher on the list, even considering what bits we actually do get. But still, this episode is a good reminder that when it concerns the diamonds, we'll be entering more unfamiliar territory very, very soon.
Good night, Stevani. Good night, Stevani. Sweet dreams.
Number 14, Future Vision. At this point in the show, Garnet has been more of a distant mentor type, as opposed to an active caregiver for Steven the way Pearl and Amethyst have been. Well, okay, mostly Pearl, but you get the idea. In this episode, we learn about a special power that only Garnet possesses, Future Vision. She doesn't exactly predict the future, but uses a form of precognition to foresee possibilities and try to guide herself and others to the best possible outcome. Or, as she puts it,
time is like a river that splits into creeks, or pools into lakes, or careens down waterfalls. I have the map, and I steer the ship.
I see.
At first, Steven is fascinated, but starts to become paranoid when he considers all the futures where something might go horribly, horribly wrong for him. And now it's up to Garnet to undo the mess she made. What I like about Garnet's future vision is that, while it's super useful, it's not overpowered and still has breathing room for story possibilities. In the end, Garnet isn't omniscient, and her future vision is still very dependent on free will and random circumstance.
What would happen if I said hi to my BFF Lars?
I see a single potential future where Lars gives you a high five. And 2 more potential futures where you suffer 3rd-degree burns all over your body.
Hi, Lars!
Criminy, are you okay? That coffee was really hot.
I drink coffee for breakfast.
This is also the first time we've really seen just her and Steven hanging out together, and it's interesting to finally parse out their dynamic.
Do you see any possible futures where you, come with me and have a great time?
Yes.
Garnet clearly loves and cares for Steven, but at this point isn't great at expressing her emotions openly and commits the rookie parenting mistake of not knowing when to say no. It's not just great to see such a fascinating character finally open up, but realize that her attempt to get closer was also what caused Steven such distress.
There are millions of possibilities for the future, but it's up to you to choose which becomes reality. Please understand, you choose your own future.
Also, she could punch lightning. Can your mom punch lightning? Nah. Number 13, That Will Be All. The Gem Heist arc had a lot of great moments peppered throughout, so it was tricky deciding on an episode to place on the list. I ultimately settled on That Will Be All, the final episode of the arc. After Blue Diamond kidnaps Greg so he can be a specimen for the Diamond Authority's long-forgotten zoo, Steven and the Crystal Gems race to pull off a desperate heist to save him.
Is this really going to work?
No.
Turns out they had people on the inside, though, as Amethyst finally reunites with her fellow Quartzes from her old kindergarten.
Amethyst under me never popped out. We're all waiting and nothing.
I'm 8XM, Facet 5, Cut 8XM, that's me! This is 8XG, this is 8XH.
I'm Jay.
Oh, jeez, sorry, I'm worse than Holly Blue.
Aren't we all?
This is heartwarming enough on its own, but even more so when you consider the reality subtext. You see, Amethyst's voice actress, Michaela Dietz, is herself adopted, and has said that this aspect of the character heavily informs a lot of her performance.
So, yeah, I mean, I could personally relate to that, I guess. Maybe it might have something to do with my being adopted. Sort of like, who am I? Who am I supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
Am I good enough? Am I not? Yeah, I mean, I guess there's sort of an inner struggle there, but I wouldn't say like I came home crying every day.
Right.
It wasn't taxing on that level, but like, yeah, I mean, getting into that emotion, yeah, it can be challenging at times.
Being reunited with her birth family and finally learning her true identity, it's a side of Amethyst we've never seen before, and I get the feeling this scene wasn't too hard for Michaela to act. But the real scene stealer is Yellow Diamond, who's also on the ship with Blue. Patti LuPone finally gets to do what she does best.
Why would you want to be here? What do you ever see here? And tell me, what's the use of feeling blue?
Can we take this in? We have a villain singing a villain song about how they want another villain to do villainous things again. It's so meta, I love it. Also, Dee Dee Magno-Hall continues to be the MVP of the voice cast. Not only does she give distinct voices for Yellow and Blue Pearl, but she even has them harmonize during the song.
Yes, my diamond. Ahem. Ahem.
Oh.
An interesting twist on the diamonds, though, is that while their shared grief over Pink Diamond is sympathetic, Yellow and Blue still very much are not. If anything, the contrast between Blue's grief and her natural ruthlessness as a dictator makes the character even more terrifying. Heck, we even see her switch between the two modes in the exact same scene.
I never asked any Sapphire to go to Earth.
My future vision foresaw you, my diamond, desiring more humans for the zoo. So I acted accordingly.
It's true. The window for preserving Earth specimens is closing.
Also, after putting up with her smug, snide attitude for most of this arc, it's nice to see the pompous Holly Blue Agate get her just desserts before the crystal gems bomb out of there, not least of which weaponizing her self-aggrandizing monologue to cover their escape.
I do hope they appreciate all my hard work to preserve the Pink Diamond legacy. 2 diamonds, 1 day! What an honor! I don't think anything could spoil this for me.
You got me monologuing, I can't believe.
Number 12, On the Run. Amethyst is unique amongst the crystal gems in the sense that she's more on Steven's level than either Garnets or Pearls. She's young enough that she didn't fight in the Gem War, has never even been to Homeworld, and considers Earth her home more than anything else. These aspects have made her touchy and insecure though, since she didn't come out how Homeworld would have intended. Like how Steven keeps getting judged against Rose's standard, Amethyst keeps getting judged for not measuring up to what a court soldier is supposed to be. So as Steven starts to learn more about the threat Homeworld presents, Amethyst gets more and more uncomfortable, and suggests they run away, finally showing Steven the kindergarten where she and other court soldiers were harvested. The Gem War's effects on Earth have been a peripheral concern up until now, but the desolation of the old kindergarten brings it all into full relief. It's no coincidence that the injectors look like viruses, and the eerie atmosphere gives the impression all life was sucked out. Almost like a graveyard. It doesn't help that Amethyst grew up in this environment, meaning she doesn't find it horrifying, she finds it comforting.
Check it out! Oh man, I miss this guy. Aw, it's my climbing rock.
Hello?
And over there, that's the sitting rock. And that was the one rock that I kicked into 2 rocks.
When Pearl finally arrives and confronts the two of them for running away, Amethyst finally takes out her anger in one of the most heart-wrenching fights in the entire series. Pearl and Amethyst have always gotten on each other's nerves, but it takes a dark twist here, with Amethyst feeling that Pearl just views her existence as one big mistake and a remnant of this terrible war. And while Pearl clearly outclasses her in terms of skill and discipline, Amethyst's goal isn't to win. It's to inflict pain and to just let out all of her rage and insecurity.
Admit it. I'm just an embarrassment to you!
Amethyst, stop this! You can't beat me!
I don't care! I never asked for it to be this way. I never asked to be made!
Season 1B had plenty of emotional depth once the invasion of Homeworld got back underway, but On the Run would be a defining moment for Amethyst as a character, and one of the most emotionally intense episodes of the early years of the show. Number 11, Rose's Scabbard. Each of the crystal gems was, in a way, defined by Rose's presence, to the point that they find themselves lost in her absence and trying to raise Steven. None, though, is more lost than Pearl, whose life was literally built around devotion to Rose, which then warped into obsession, then finally into misguided love. In Rose's Scabbard, we see the illusions she's built up come crashing down as she realizes the number of secrets that Rose kept from her, and her difficulty reconciling this perceived betrayal with her love for Steven.
Rose kept many things secret, even from us.
But not from me! I was the one she told everything! You can't understand how I feel! None of you had what we had!
She probably just wanted to protect you like everyone else.
What do you know? You've never even met her!
While the strawberry field and the floating islands are gorgeous backdrops, the real animation triumph is all the subtle emotions the storyboard artists are able to convey as Pearl wrestles with her grief and confusion. There. Right there. In one expression, we get fear, anger, heartbreak, shame, perhaps even a little resentment. And Dee Dee manages to convey so much raw emotion in every single line, whether silly or serious.
Sometimes you even sound like her. Do you remember this place? Do you have any of her memories?
But the best part of the episode has no dialogue at all, as Steven uses Lion to help cheer up Pearl and even share some history about the Gem War, the most vanquished look on her face as they finally ride home as the morning sun comes. Even if the Gem War granted Pearl her freedom, she was still bound to Rose, either out of duty or out of love, neither of which was necessarily returned. The difference is that Steven's love is unconditional, and all he wants is for Pearl to be herself, whatever that may be.
Everything I ever did, I did for her. What would she think of me now?
Well, I think you're pretty great.